Do fallen angels look like any other human being? That's what we're going to be dealing with in today's bite-sized Bible Q&A. This is one of those topics that a lot of people enjoy asking about. I think because it has no direct implications in our lives, right? We don't feel any moral obligation to believe one thing or the other about the appearance of angels. But the Bible actually has more to say about this than people think. And without getting into an hour-long discussion about all the various ideas that come from Genesis 6, this passage that we're going to look at dealing with the sons of God and the daughters of men, there's been a lot of different ideas put forth. I'm going to try to limit my comments to what I actually think we're dealing with here. So in Genesis 6:1, it says, "It came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose." Now, who are these sons of God? I believe that what we're reading about in verses 1 and 2, that the author is making a point to tell us that there are two different origins for the people involved in this story. We have one group of people that came directly from God and another group of people that came directly from men. So the women that we're reading about, the daughters of men, they're just earthly human women. Now the sons of God, who would that be? I'm going to say that these are beings that were created by God. These are angels. And there's a verse, I believe, that works well to show this. I'm going to come back to Genesis 6 in just a moment, but let me take you over to the book of Job, chapter 38, and try to offer you another verse here, verse or two, that will help answer this. Job 38:6, it says, now this is God speaking to Job, asking him question after question, just to show Job how much he didn't know. It says, "Whereupon are the foundations thereof fastened, and who laid the cornerstone thereof?" Speaking about all of creation. Verse 7, "When the morning stars sang together, and all the sons of God shouted for joy." So God is asking Job to make comment about things that were going on before humanity even existed. So the sons of God cannot be referring to some human group. It has to be referring to a different group. We can see it again in Job chapter 1, verse 6. "Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came also among them." So these morning stars that sang, these sons of God shouting for joy, these sons of God that we read about here that present themselves before the Lord, I believe this makes it pretty clear that we're dealing with angels. Now this also is going to connect to what Jude, in his New Testament epistle, this is going to connect to what he says in verse number 6. Jude chapter 1 and verse 6. "And the angels which kept not their first estate." Now that is their first condition, their first rank. God, obviously angels, they were created with a higher rank than humans. Now we read in the book of Hebrews that mankind was made a little lower than the angels. So there is a ranking system in play there. When these angels kept not their first estate, they're giving up that better condition of being. And they left their own habitation. So they are inhabiting what we know biblically as the third heaven, dwelling in the presence of God. They leave that. They came down. They saw the daughters of men, that they were fair. They left heaven to take a beautiful woman. Now, in so doing, what appearance did they take on? Did they look human? There is no verse in Genesis 6 that tells us what exactly those fallen angels or these sons of God looked like. Genesis 6 does, however, have something to say about this. So in Genesis 6:4, it says, "There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men. And they bare children to them. The same became mighty men, which are of old, men of renown." So they were very famous, very powerful people. So if the angels that fell were deceptive and did not disclose where they came from, I think people would have started to ask questions and get curious and suspicious when the giants, right, or other people refer to it as Nephilim, when they would have started to come from these unions, people would have raised an eyebrow. Now, throughout the Bible, one thing you'll notice is that angels, on several occasions, they do appear to people, and the people do not know that they're talking to an angel. Now, there's even something in the New Testament that would speak to this. In Hebrews chapter 13, we read in verse number 2, "Be not forgetful to entertain strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels unawares." Right? In Judges chapter 13, Manoah's wife was approached by an angel. She thought he was just a man of God. So to answer the question that you find below here, do fallen angels appear as men? Yes, they most certainly can. From what we read in the other stories in the Bible of angelic appearances, and even this verse that you're seeing here in Hebrews 13, it looks as if angels do not disclose their true identity, where they're from, and what they're all about. And on occasion they would, but not always. Now, just before we reach the end of this, I want to show you one other verse that I think is interesting, and people often raise an eyebrow at it. In 1 Corinthians 11 and verse number 10, Paul's talking about a woman's haircut, and a man's haircut is also referenced in there a little bit. And I think he's just dealing with women should look like women, men should look like men. We could touch on that in greater detail some other time, but notice this verse, verse 10, "For this cause ought the woman to have power on her head because of the angels." It appears that Paul is aware of the fact that angels, even in New Testament times, would still be able to fall. And it appears, if I'm understanding the verse correctly, that they would still be able to approach a woman, and that this strange union could still take place. And it looks as if these fallen angels would be looking for a particular kind of woman. According to 1 Corinthians 11, they'd be looking for a rebellious woman. So I find that verse interesting when you tie it in with all the other verses on this subject. So I hope that answers the question, do fallen angels appear as men? They can, yes, most certainly. Do they disclose their true identity? It appears that they can, but they don't always do that. And this is going to lead to another question that we're going to answer very soon. Where do demons and devils, unclean spirits, where do they come from? I believe you're going to see that there is a connection to what we've talked about today.